Hook. Los Angeles isn't just the entertainment capital of the world. It's the undisputed serial killer capital of America, and you've been walking past their hunting grounds your entire life. Hook End, Act 1, The Normal World, and the First Sign. Something is wrong. Los Angeles, California. Population, nearly 4 million. The city of angels, of dreams, of endless sunshine. But beneath that golden veneer, something darker has been growing for decades, something most people never see, until it's too late. Pattern interrupt. In 2019, a data analyst named Sarah Chen moved to LA from the Midwest. She was 28, bright, curious. She worked for a tech startup in Santa Monica. And she had an unusual hobby. She liked to map crime data, not for work, just for fun. She'd pull public records, plot them on interactive maps, and look for patterns. Pattern interrupt. One night she started mapping something she'd never thought about before: unsolved murders in Los Angeles County. Specifically, cases where the victim was found in a remote area. A canyon, a hiking trail, an abandoned lot. She expected to see a random scatter. That's what crime data usually looks like, random noise, but what she found made her stop typing. Cliffhanger. The map showed something that couldn't be random. Sarah zoomed in. The murders weren't random at all. They clustered, tightly, around specific locations. The most prominent cluster? The Angeles National Forest, a massive wilderness area just north of downtown LA. Within that forest, there was a single trail, the Mount Wilson Trail, where 7 bodies had been found over 12 years. All women, all killed in similar ways, all cases unsolved. Pattern interrupt. She checked the dates. The earliest was 2007. The latest was 2019. The gaps between murders were irregular. 2 years, then 6 months, then 3 years. But the location never changed. The same trail, the same general area. It was as if someone was using that trail as a dumping ground, or a hunting ground. Pattern interrupt. Sarah felt a cold knot form in her stomach. She'd lived in LA for 6 months. She'd hiked that trail twice. She'd taken photos at the summit. She'd stood exactly where those women had taken their last breaths, and she had no idea. Cliffhanger. But this was just the beginning. The map had more secrets to reveal. Act 2. Escalation. Multiple terrifying events, with rising stakes. Sarah widened her search. She pulled data from all of Los Angeles County. Not just the forest, but the city itself. She looked at unsolved disappearances, unsolved homicides, cases that had gone cold, and when she overlaid them on a map of known serial killer activity, something impossible appeared. Pattern interrupt. The map looked like a constellation, dozens of points, but they weren't random stars. They formed a pattern, a specific repeating pattern. The murders clustered along major freeways, the 101, the 405, the 5. But more specifically, they clustered near exits that led to industrial areas, to abandoned warehouses, to stretches of road with no streetlights. Pattern interrupt. Sarah remembered something she'd read in a criminology textbook. Serial killers often use freeways to travel between hunting grounds. They call it commuter murder. The killer lives in one area, works in another, and hunts in a third. The freeway is the thread that connects everything. Cliffhanger. But what Sarah found next suggested something far more organized than a single commuter killer. She cross-referenced the murder locations with something else. The locations of homeless encampments. LA has one of the largest homeless populations in the country, and the data showed that a disproportionate number of unsolved murders happened within half a mile of these encampments, not inside them, near them, as if the killer was using the encampments as cover, or as bait. Pattern interrupt. A pattern began to emerge. Victims were almost always vulnerable. Homeless individuals, sex workers, runaways, undocumented immigrants, people who wouldn't be missed quickly. People whose disappearances might not even be reported. The killer wasn't just choosing random targets. He was selecting people who had already been erased from society's view. Pattern interrupt. Sarah's hands were shaking now. She'd found something big, but she didn't know what to do with it. She was just a data analyst, not a detective. She decided to reach out to a retired LAPD homicide detective named Michael Torres. He'd worked cold cases for 30 years. If anyone could make sense of this, it was him. Cliffhanger. When she sent him her map, he called her back within an hour. His voice was tense. He said 3 words. "Where did you get this?" Torres explained something that made Sarah's blood run cold. He said the LAPD had been tracking a pattern like this for years, but they'd kept it quiet. The reason? They believed there wasn't just one killer. There were multiple, and they were connected, not by a shared motive, not by a shared method, but by something else, something far more disturbing. Pattern interrupt. He told her about a theory that had circulated among cold case detectives for decades, that Los Angeles was a staging ground for serial killers, a place where killers from all over the country came to hunt, because the city was so vast, so transient, so easy to disappear into, and because the victims were so often invisible. Pattern interrupt. Sarah's map had accidentally revealed a network, a web of unsolved murders that stretched across the entire county. And at the center of that web was a single location, a stretch of abandoned railroad tracks near downtown LA. The tracks ran through a neighborhood called Skid Row. Cliffhanger. And according to Torres, those tracks were where the bodies were found. But not just found. Left, arranged, like a message. Act 3, the horrifying revelation, or open-ended conclusion. Sarah drove to Skid Row the next day. She didn't tell anyone. She wanted to see it for herself. The tracks ran behind a chain-link fence, overgrown with weeds. The air smelled of diesel and decay. She walked along the fence line looking for anything unusual. Pattern interrupt. She found a gap in the fence, small, just wide enough for a person to slip through. She hesitated, but curiosity had her by the throat. She slipped through. The ground was soft, muddy. She walked maybe 50 feet before she saw it. A single shoe, a woman's sneaker, size 7. It was caked in mud, but the laces were tied neatly, too neatly, as if someone had placed it there on purpose. Pattern interrupt. Sarah felt the temperature drop. The air grew cold. She looked around and noticed something else, the graffiti on the nearby walls. It wasn't random tags, it was symbols, repeated symbols, the same symbol painted over and over again in different colours, different styles, but always the same shape. A circle with a line through it, an empty circle. Cliffhanger. She took a photo. Later, when she showed it to Torres, he went pale. He said, "That's a marker. Hunters use them to mark territory." Torres told her that the LAPD had found those symbols near multiple crime scenes, but they'd never been able to identify who was painting them, or why. The working theory was that the symbols were a communication system, a way for killers to claim areas, to warn others away, or to invite them into a pattern interrupt. Sarah's research had uncovered something the police had tried to keep hidden. Los Angeles wasn't just a city with a lot of serial killers. It was a city that had become a hunting ground, a place where killers operated with impunity, because the system was broken, because the victims were invisible, because no one wanted to admit that the City of Angels had a dark underbelly that was actively consuming the vulnerable. Pattern interrupt. But the most disturbing part, Sarah found evidence that the pattern extended back further than anyone had realized. She found newspaper articles from the 1970s describing similar murders, similar symbols, similar locations, the same railroad tracks, the same canyons, the same freeway exits. Cliffhanger. Whoever was doing this, or whatever was doing this, had been active for over 50 years, and no one had stopped it. Sarah stopped hiking alone after that. She stopped walking home late at night. She started looking over her shoulder. She started noticing the shadows that moved in her peripheral vision. The cars that drove slowly past her apartment, the strangers who seemed to watch her a little too long. Pattern interrupt. She never published her findings. She couldn't. The data was too disturbing, too implicating. She sent it to Torres, who passed it to a few trusted colleagues. But nothing ever came of it. The cases remained unsolved. The map remained a secret. And the killings continued. Pattern interrupt. As of 2024, Los Angeles still leads the nation in unsolved serial murders. The official number is somewhere around 200 active cold cases. But Sarah's map suggests the real number is much higher. Because most serial murders in LA are never even identified as serial murders. They're classified as random acts of violence, as isolated incidents, as the cost of living in a big city. Cliffhanger. But if you look at the map the right way, if you connect the dots, you start to see something else, a pattern that has no innocent explanation. So here's the question that keeps Sarah up at night. If Los Angeles is a hunting ground, who, or what, is doing the hunting? And how many killers are out there, right now walking among us using the city's chaos as cover? The answer might be closer than you think. It might be in the car next to you at a red light. It might be the person standing behind you in line at the grocery store. It might be the shadow you saw move in your peripheral vision just now. Pattern interrupt. Cliffhanger. Because in the serial killer capital of America, the most dangerous place isn't a dark alley. It's the assumption that you're safe. And that assumption might be the last mistake you ever make. Thanks for watching. If this story made you think twice about your surroundings, hit that like button. And subscribe, because the truth is always darker than you imagine. I'll see you in the next one.